So the focus of the seminar, which is why most of you are here today, is digital trends here to stay post-pandemic. But before we go into the trends, let's do a bit of a recap of what the last 18 months has been. Don't worry, we won't go into too many flashbacks that bring back bad memories. We'll focus on what happened. So we went from empty streets, people spending lots of money on outdoor digital advertising, look how empty Piccadilly was, to us all being at home and literally lost in our mobile phones and digital devices and being isolated into digital tech that we had at home. This is where I say officially was the kickstart of the digital age. So, the only thing I say the positive to take out of pandemic is the forced nature, as you would say, of the digital age, where a lot of companies have to adapt and move forward. We did a talk back in April 2020 at the last Leeds Digital Festival event online, and we were asked to give our viewpoint of what was happening back then in terms of changes. So this is actual Bobble digital client data where we shared straight after COVID from March what happened, what were the trends that were happening online, and the key thing we noticed that a lot of companies had dropped off in key areas of their digital marketing spend. They were focusing more on display network and YouTube, where a lot of elements were going. What we saw that was that search had taken a big hit in terms of where businesses, organizations were spending their money, and a result, we had seen a big uplift in YouTube and display advertising because more people are generally online consuming more different content. And that's expected because more people on news publications and more news sites where they're trying to get more information about the pandemic and what was going on, and everybody was bored, and the only entertainment we had was Mr. Beast on YouTube, essentially. Search habits changed at that time. We started seeing night owls arrive, so we saw a lot of traffic and engagement between 12 and 3 a.m. in the morning, which seemed very, very surprising. A lot of people lost their sleeping patterns. I still haven't got mine back. I will work all hours of the day. We also saw that, ironically, social actually became social again. That's what people were using social media for. Instead of doing that just to consume content, people actually having to use social media, Facebook Messenger, to actually interact, because we couldn't get out of our houses. We were locked down. We couldn't go out and meet someone. We couldn't go talk to our friends and have a coffee. We couldn't do events like this. So we saw a lot of key changes from different types of audience segments. So our data really focused on people like baby boomers, millennials, Gen X and Gen Z, and we saw different really trends all the way through the outbreak. So we realized that Gen Z were listening to more music and playing more games at the time, whereas actual millennials were actually, spending more time on social media and giving their opinions in terms of, the chaos that was happening at that time. But we also saw a rise in video content at that time. So, video content consumption increased significantly during that period, straight after March to April, when we did this kind of talk. We found that actually 42% of baby boomers were spending more time on TV compared to Gen Zs. Millennials peaked with online TV, so that's why brands like Disney Plus did so well, Netflix did so well, because a lot more content of that form in terms of video was being consumed, especially live streams and podcasts, where we saw 20% or 30% increase with millennials and other generations in particular. So that's what was happening back then, but what became very apparent was that digital marketing became the most important aspect for every business, and attention quickly moved over to strategy. We ended up becoming, as an agency, educators and advisors, and our clients started coming up to us in April, May saying, what do we do? Inside my mind, I was like, I have no idea, if I was absolutely honest, because none of us have been through a pandemic before. But the only thing about a pandemic in terms of how the economy was working was it kind of mirrored that of a recession. So when you had to look back in terms of what were previous digital trends or what was previous digital marketing trends we had to adapt to in terms of what we should do and how we can learn, the only thing we could look at was a recession, because businesses were closing, the economy was short, everything went online. And the best quote I got and I saw when I was doing a talk for Leeds Digital Festival was, the best thing about a recession is Sam Walton from Walmart, when asked, what do you think about a recession? He responded, thought about it and decided not to participate. And that was the kind of advice we started to kind of give to our clients and to everyone out there. And that came in the form of the following, that you need to have a strategy in place in terms of, market turmoil and everything that's going on. You need to focus on evolving, and what we found that, having a marketing plan in place for when things go back to, pre-COVID. So your pre-COVID strategy was never going to work. things changed so quickly, trends adapted, how consumers were behaving online adapted so quickly that if you thought that, oh, we have a strategy in place, it's just on pause and then we'll go back to it after COVID, it was doomed to fail. So it was having a strategy in place with that, and according to the e-consultancy study, 10% of surveys respondents said that they said only 10% of people had a marketing strategy in place implemented at that time, which was quite shocking. So the first thing and the first trend we said to businesses was, have a strategy in place, understand where you are as a business and what does that mean in terms of marketing objectives, in terms of where you need to be. You need to be agile, focus on the short term. And this is going to continue now moving forward as well. Being agile, focus on the short term. What is the priority for your business? What is the priority if you're an agency here for your clients? Focus on that. By being adaptive and agile, you can react to how your consumers behave online. And we saw a lot of consumer trends changes over the period of, what has been just 18 months, where people went from online to video to mobile, to adapting to virtual reality and augmented reality platforms. Understanding the consumer demographics, it all became about data, understanding the Google Analytics, understanding who your really customers are, and really trying to retain and keep your existing customers, and not really focusing on what I said, the hard sell. It was a tough market at that time. And we told customers to actually, communicate, engage with your customers. Don't be like, oh, buy now, 50% off. Actually engage, tell them what you're doing, how you're responding, how you're supporting local businesses. Budgets, this might be a bit of a selfish one, you might think, from an agency perspective, that we told our clients to continue spending. But I can guarantee you now that any business that continued to spend during the pandemic has a greater online market share and is actually thriving right now. And that is the case for most of our clients that continue to spend during the pandemic. One of our clients, Interface, which is a global manufacturer of carpet tiles and luxury vinyl tiles, doubled down and doubled their SEO budget, which meant that they went from position 3 in terms of market share online, in terms of SEO, to actually in the EAAA market to position 1. And that's because their competitors stopped spending. It's easy when you've got business concerns to cut the marketing budget, but when you're in a recession style format in terms of economy, this is a big mistake to make in terms of cutting your budget, in terms of marketing. So if you're an agency and you've got clients, you should be advising them to either to continue to spend and ride out the storm if they can, or show them how effective their spend can be by focusing on the elements that are going to really drive growth. Focusing on local SEO, a lot of local, at Bobble, we're quite fortunate to have international, national, but a lot of local businesses. And it was actually heartbreaking to see some of those local businesses actually go under. We were working with an amazing fitness studio in Oakley. Because she had 3 spaces, she couldn't really adapt online too much and had to close down her fitness studios. And we had done such an amazing job just after, Christmas and January with the fitness surge, when everyone starts joining gyms and getting back into health, that to see that business not really survive the pandemic was a little heartbreaking. But our advice to our local businesses was focus on your local SEO, whether that was retailers, gyms or stores. It was quite crucial to do that. And as you'll see later on in the presentation why SEO is so important with the latest updates that come from Google and the trends moving forward. In terms of content, and if there is anyone who wants to argue, it was all about offering empathy and adding value. It wasn't about the hard sell, as we said earlier. It was all about telling our clients that, nurture and engage and accommodate social distancing, and tell, customers what you're doing, how you're adapting in terms of, when things started opening, in terms of when you get back to physical stores. So one of our clients went from a physical store to just an online store and showed how they're basically getting rid of the store space, cutting down on emissions and supporting the environment and doing everything online to streamline their work. It was all about engaging and informing your customers and potential customers of what you're doing and how you're engaging, how you're staying relevant in what was a difficult time. And then video, we were telling our clients, now's the time to invest in video content, because what we saw as a key trend at that time was so many businesses and consumers, engage in video content, as we showed in our stats earlier. They were all on YouTube, they were all on their mobile phones, they were all on social media. TikTok in particular became, the highest downloaded app in 2020, and that is all video content. So we really advise our clients to start looking at different types of video content to kind of share out. Back in January 2021, this year, I came up with 10 digital trends for 2021. And that was around social media, mobile video content, SEO changes, web personalization, private messaging apps, AI software, micro-influencers, podcasting, augmented reality, and virtual events. Now, I'm not going to go through all 10 because that content's already online, so you can look at it on our YouTube channel if you want to see what we talked about in that possession, but this is what you're here to see. So which trends are here to stay? Now, I'm going to be a bit selfish and say all of them because I'm not very wrong often with my digital trend setting. But there are 5 here that I want you to really focus on. And what you notice that there's only 3 from that original list and 2 new ones since January that I've introduced as a trend for you to really focus on, which is going to be really interesting. So the first one, social media. It's become a top channel for purchase instead of just discovery. With so many people, the stat was from 2019 to 2020, there were 300 more million social media users globally around the world. 3.5 million people have access to mobile and social media around the world globally out of a population of 7.8 billion. So just think that your audience and mass and your actual potential audience size in terms of who you can target is so vast on social media that it actually became a channel for purchase. We always used to say that paid social media and social media in general is top of the funnel. It's there to drive people to your site. It's there for you to engage and inform and actually, try and educate or engage with your potential customers or existing customers. But over the pandemic, and what you'll see moving forward is a lot of platforms like Facebook and Instagram, which is all the same platform. Instagram is owned by Facebook, are optimizing their platforms for more purchases. They have had troubles over the last 12 months with the iOS 14 rollout in terms of how much content and conversion data can share, but with the shopping ads feature and the carousel and the lookbook features on Facebook, they really optimized for e-commerce sites very quickly. And that was given because a lot of sales were online as opposed to physical. So platforms like social medias and Facebook started to adapt to encourage more sales through their platform, which meant more people staying on their platform, more active users monthly, but actually more media and ad spend going through that platform overall. And TikTok, it literally came into its own form with, I can say I didn't do any TikTok videos. I behaved myself, but I did watch a lot of the digital trends that was going on board. And it was the highest downloaded app of 2020. So, look at where Facebook and Instagram was and look at where TikTok is. There'll always be a new app. I feel like Snapchat, and this is my own personal opinion, is on a bit of a decrease. It's like stuck with a particular generation. Whereas, Facebook and Instagram has moved with every generation moving forward, but TikTok is on the rise because it has that key element, video content, that we discussed. So if you're a business and you want to focus on a trend, social media is going to be important, and really focus on that. You can get sales from social media moving forward. We're seeing a lot of our clients get great sales from social media moving forward. It's not just top of the funnel, it's there to convert and help you grow as a business. The next is mobile video content. So not just video content overall, it's mobile. Now we just know that Apple announced, iPhone 13, is it now? Pro 13, I lose count of how many numbers they have. But media consumption each year increases by 100%. Live video should account for around about 20 to 25% of video content consumed this year alone. And that's only going to continue to grow in 2022. The fact that users are 1.5 times more likely to watch a video on mobile phone than any other kind of content. And if you are on platforms like social media, on YouTube, these devices are not just in our, I don't know where I put my mobile phone, but actually I've given it over, but these devices in our pockets are more than just, there for social media engagement and text and calls. Consumers basically use them to consume a lot of video content, which is why social media is such a key platform. So, you've got the introduction to Instagram stories, Instagram TV, and YouTube. You've got live elements, and LinkedIn introduced stories as well, video stories to their platform, and that's a professional network. So you got to focus on stuff like explainer videos all the way to, how does your product or service work? If people are searching your services or products or whatever it is you offer as a company, you need to be able to explain that as best as you can. And sometimes the best way to do that is video on your website. Either have a YouTube channel. What we do is we create video content by just doing Bobble Bitesize elements, and we're able to upload that to YouTube and have that on a dedicated Bobble Bitesize page on our website. So it kind of shows us that, when we're talking about digital trends and PPC and SEO, we know what we're talking about, we're there to educate. It gives consumers, when they come to our website, that assurance that actually, this agency knows what they're talking about, essentially. Also, Q&As is quite good with live videos being introduced, so that's the one element I want to kind of introduce. Is what you'll start seeing now is you've got the chat feature sometimes on websites. They're going to start turning into live video chat features moving forward, so really start investing into those kind of elements. The next is SEO change really changed focus. What we noticed with our own data is that clients that we were doing blogs with 2,000 plus more words were getting more engagement, a lower bounce rate, more time on site than blogs with 1,000 words or less. So it kind of comes back to that offer value and empathy element we discussed earlier in terms of, engage and give your consumers and your customers informative educational content. Google is humanizing as a platform. People are using Google and YouTube to search in questions, and whoever provides the best answer is going to rank at the top. So it's not just about ranking around keywords in terms of what you offer as a product. It's explaining what that is. It's explaining what is SEO in our case, or if you're a furniture client, it's explaining how does those kind of products and companies how is that manufactured? What kind of design style should I go with in my house? It's offering value to the content. What we found was that with longer form content and more structured, it was keeping consumers on site longer. And Google likes that. Google looks at the amount of time someone spends on a site based on a keyword search that they do in Google. It helps and contributes towards your Google ranking online. So it will look at bounce rate and relevancy. If people go into your website and rank, let's say if we were ranking for SEO agency and people clicking on it and jumping off and the bounce rate was 9% plus, our rankings would go down because Google would see that as someone is typing in a question, not getting the answer they want. That website and that content page is not giving that consumer the information they went to go look on, hence the bounce rate so high. And what we found with longer, blogs was that, people are spending more time on site, and it's changed focus. Google's EAT guidelines launched 2 years ago, which means expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And this is how you should really optimize your content for moving forward, is offering that expertise and trustworthiness as a brand, as a business in terms of the content you offer. It's a key element. Don't be doing blogs every week. Try and focus on what's relevant to your business and prioritize, as I said earlier, focus on the short term and write content that's long form and relevant to what you're trying to help your customers understand about that product. There's a web agency in here who's going to like this one. User-friendly websites. So I don't know if many people know, in summer, Google launched its latest, biggest update since the EAT guidelines, which was Core Web Vitals. Now, Core Web Vitals is all about your website. So EAT guidelines is all about your on-page content. Core Web Vitals is all about how well your website performed. And what we saw over the pandemic is a lot of businesses having to reinvest in a website. We did as well back in May. And thanks to the team at Trio here, we've got a very good high-ranking website. Big shout out to them. And that was introduced in June. It was delayed. It was meant to come out in April. And it's been going on and discussed about for a year. And moving forward, this is a key element for your clients, for yourselves and your own businesses moving forward, because it's all about speed, usability, the mobile first elements of your website. How responsive is your website from a mobile perspective? As we said, more and more people are using mobile as devices moving forward. So how fast is your website discoverable on mobile? How quick does it take to load? It's all about the image. It's all about the video content. Is it very streamlined? The longer it takes for your website and all that content on your homepage to load, the lower your ranking will be because it's just too slow in Google's eyes. You need to pass the Core Web Vitals test by Google, essentially. The best way to do that is if you go on the Google speed test, you just type Google speed test into Google, it'll come up with page speed index as a URL, and you can actually copy and paste your website URL into that, and it'll give you a Core Web Vitals, top view ranking in terms of where you stand. I'll tell you how quick it is to load on a desktop and how quick it is your website loads on a mobile. And you want to be above 80. Actually, it's above 90. I just remembered it's not 80. So anything above 90 to 100 is perfect. Google likes. Anything below that isn't that good. And it will tell you what recommendations in terms of what's slowing your website down from a Google perspective. So I'd highly recommend using that tool. But moving forward as a trend, your website is your business gateway. So make sure you make a good impression, and that's what Google wants. Account-based marketing. So again, this is a new one. So what we saw a lot of companies do was try and focus on new customers, and we said focus on existing customers who are staying loyal. You don't lose your existing customers who are spending a lot of money with you to try and attract potential new customers. Now that, you might say that defeats the object of a business to try and introduce new businesses, but over the pandemic we found that actual customer loyalty was everything, engaging with the existing customers of everything, and they will stay with you for a longer time. It's that brand association, that brand loyalty that you want. So if your customers have stayed with you during lockdown, they're highly invested in your brand. If they're highly invested in your brand, they're going to continue to buy and they're going to be your brand advocates. That's where account-based marketing comes in place, because it's adapting your strategy to existing customers and rewarding them for their continued support. It's all about adapting your messaging. So think of like email campaigns and being specific. We have a client that wants to take the existing data and send out to their best performing customers what they've been buying in a tailored dashboard. So if you think of Spotify, how many have Spotify, just by a show of hands? Do you get those end of year summaries of what you've been listening to? Think of that. That's what they're trying to do and engage, and what they're trying to do for the end of this year with their best performing clients. And what they're going to do is tailor an offer based on what they know that client's spending the most on their website, and saying, here's a free product of that, or here's 10% off your next purchase, or here's £50 credit because we know you like that product and we value you as a customer. We've tailored this to you. We know so much about you. So existing data is going to become so much more important, and that's a trend moving forward. As an agency, we tailor our content to our existing customers as best as we can. We do workshops for them to help them educate them as well, but that tailoring and personalization to existing customers is going to be very, very, very key, especially if you want your biggest customers, your biggest spenders to stay with you moving forward. Make them feel involved. Don't just focus your messaging all about new. We want new customers to come in. Focus on existing customers and let them know you're still there, you're still engaging with them, and account-based marketing is going to be one of the key trends moving forward. So what next? Now's not the time, I say, to hedge your bets and leave things to chance. Focus on the trends that we've shared. Obviously, we'll share this presentation, but now's the time for you as a business to embrace digital. Focus on your business objectives and align that with your marketing objectives. What we see a lot of companies do, and a lot of companies that come to us for strategies, where first thing we ask is, what's your business objectives? Where are you now? Where do you want to be in 6 months, then 12 months, and 2 years from now? And that is very, very short term, instead of saying, where do you want to be in 5 years? Setting measurable objectives. By asking them that question and getting them to understand what they want to achieve in the short term, you can then start tailoring the digital strategy or your digital marketing objectives around that, in terms of how is content, how is digital marketing, how is your website all going to support those elements. I always say, don't be the person that says, I wish I had done that sooner. You don't want to be in a room and think, I should have done my website sooner. I should have optimized. I should have been on video and social media sooner. I should have been optimizing my SEO sooner. I should have engaged with a award-winning agency sooner. Just joking. So yeah, you don't want to be that person in the room, or as a business owner thinking, I should have done that sooner. And that's what we're trying to say, is take these trends, take these learnings, and start adapting them very, very now, because you don't want to get to January 2022 and think we've kind of potentially, on the back foot here, because all our competitors are ahead of us. They're already doing it all. So thanks for that. I hope you've enjoyed that. Do we have any questions from the audience? If I don't get any questions, it means I did a very, very good job, or it went straight through everyone's head. Any questions? Yeah.
I noticed Clubhouse wasn't on your list.
Okay.
That's going on just general, like voice in general. Because Twitter released Twitter moments.
Yeah.
So I remember Clubhouse being one of the biggest hypes of 2020. I think it very quickly died into a death.
Clubhouse problem was that it was invite. Right now it's invite only still, and it was iPhone and iOS app, so it's limiting its reach. It is a great tool. I am on Clubhouse. I use it. I kind of use it more for an educational purpose more than anything else. Do I see it being a big trend moving forward? No, but I did mention in my other one, virtual events. Virtual events are here to stay. Clubhouse is one way to kind of do almost like virtual events and engage. But I feel like other trends like podcasting, essentially you can get the same information from that. So my advice is Clubhouse is still too new, whereas we've seen TikTok grow so well and so fast in 2020 and 2021. There's so much more, case studies around digital marketing and what companies are doing, not just organically, but from a paid perspective, that we can actually go to clients and say, here's a good strategy around TikTok. If you come up to us and say you want a Clubhouse strategy, I wouldn't know where to begin, because it's still in its infancy as a platform. It still needs to grow its user base. It needs to launch on Android, and it needs to become more global. Hands up if you've actually heard of Clubhouse before now. Just under half the group. There's your problem. Hands up if you've heard of TikTok before this event. There's that that kind of just answers the question there. It just doesn't have enough voice online about what it is and what it offers and what USPs are. And there's no way to actually, from a paid and a digital agency, for us to go to a client to say, this is a trend you want to be on. You know, there's other agencies here that do creative and social, and they could probably give a better strategy in terms of how to create engaging content and run events on Clubhouse, which would be good. So one thing that we could do is I could probably take this Bobble Bitesize and put it in Clubhouse and trial that to see if it works and give myself a global audience instead of just an audience in terms of West Yorkshire. So that's something that we could do, and that's how I would use Clubhouse moving forward. But as a digital trend moving forward, I just don't see that being the priority, which I'd stay focused on the 5 that I've shared today. Any other questions? Yeah, go on.
If you had to pick one area to tell someone to invest in out of those that you've spoken about today, which would it be?
Your website. Everything's online and digital. Your website is your first impression. And the way Google's optimizing its algorithm, and Google is a monopoly. It technically isn't what they say, but it is. In terms of search market, it's 90% here in the UK, and it's around about 92% in the US, and Bing and Yahoo account for the rest. So if you're not following your website in line with Google guidelines and making it user-friendly, stuff like Core Web Vitals, then there's nothing we can do. There's no point coming up to us saying we want to drive traffic to our website, and the first thing I see is a very poor website, and I say, well, you don't even pass Core Web Vitals. You need to change your website. It needs to be mobile responsive, because you've got another project to do first. And that's what we're finding in a lot of cases with clients that come up to us. They're saying, I want to launch this product. I want to, get more traffic to site. And I say, well, the reason it's not working right now is because look at the bounce rate on your website. It's not user-friendly. It's not mobile responsive. It's not catered for us to put ads on Facebook or to do search campaigns or video campaigns to drive traffic to. Why would you want to drive traffic to that website right now when it's performing so poor? So having that user-friendly website is probably the most important element to focus on now. And a lot of businesses did that. A lot of businesses took their C-bills and bounce back loans and invested into their online presence. And those that did continue to evolve. We did our website back in May, and within 6 months, we were ranking in the top 3 positions for SEO agency leads in a very, very competitive market. I mean, I've got to give props to Trio a little for that, for creating us a great website. But from an SEO perspective, we knew how to then take that and actually make it very, very easy for us to rank and take market share in what is a competitive keyword term. Because if I was to bid on that, you're looking at about £20, £25 a CPC, whereas organically, I'm on the top half of Google. So, and that's all comes down to having a very, very well-built, user-friendly website. Without a good website, I can't drive traffic, I can't give you conversions, which is what you want as a business, is what we tell our clients. Any other questions? Got one at the back.
Do you think digital marketing priorities vary depending on whether you're working B2B or B2C?
Yes and no. It really depends on industry and your focus and who your customers are. We're working with a lot of B2B customers right now across a number of range of channels, and very digital tech-based clients, particularly in the US as well. And we're seeing a lot of rise in terms of B2B adapting digital marketing. Before they were relying on word of mouth, but now I say it's digital word of mouth. So as a priority in terms of digital marketing, is very, very important for B2C. So if you're driving, product-based elements, as we discussed with how platforms like Facebook are adapting to kind of focus on sales, yes, digital marketing is going to be very, very essential if you're an e-commerce site, but it's also what you do on the site. From a B2B perspective, we are seeing a significant rise because businesses are starting to understand, and that was because of the pandemic, that actually they can do most of the stuff online as they used to do physically. They don't need to invest into that TV or physical billboards and must do these kind of specialist events. They can do their own events and they can engage with the right customers online, and that's just because of data. We all give so much information out to these platforms about who we are, where we work, what we do, when we like to eat, where we check in. Most of you probably checked in at Archive, or we know where you are and we know your decision makers. And more data is available, which means digital marketing should be a priority for B2B companies right now, because it's what's going to drive leads and conversions long term and build and maintain that relationship with account-based marketing, which is one of the trends I mentioned earlier. Okay, we've got 2 more questions. I'm going to go with the first one first, ladies first. Yeah.
In terms of B2B marketing and short-form video content like TikTok and Instagram Reels, is it always feasible to encourage B2B clients to invest in that form of digital marketing? Because time it can be difficult to actually, get them to implement the strategies on top of everything else and provide engaging content?
I would encourage your clients to do like an A/B test. That's what we've done a lot of our clients to do, because a lot of our clients do really focus on image content, especially when we're doing LinkedIn campaigns. And what we try to do is encourage them is saying, well, let's create some video content for you. And that video, I always feel in people's mind is like live video, like, trailers kind of stuff. It's not. You can do animated video content very, very effectively and it's short term. You've got to get as much information effectively over in like 5 to 10 seconds across most of these platforms, because that's how much you have in terms of a consumer's attention span to kind of get them to understand what it is you offer. So the best way to do that is, effective big words, animated, straight to the point, question-based kind of video formats. So I'd go back to your clients and say, let's just test it and compare it to a campaign that's done really well, just using image or carousel ads, for example, or just organic content, and introduce video and look at the engagement changes compared to the two. Sometimes it's saying, let's just do one and do an A/B test and prove to them the case of how the results are. You're right, there's no guarantee that it's going to work, but the general consensus and the data shows that video content engages better. More consumers, when they're on platforms like LinkedIn, social media, YouTube, are there to consume video content as opposed to image or wider content. There's a question from Zach.
So the EAT formula is obviously the way that Google is going, like trustworthiness and authoritativeness, and the E, which I can't remember, I suppose.
Expertise, yeah.
I was just wondering what your thoughts were in terms of the future of copywriting, and if AI copywriting could possibly put someone like me out of business. I know my own.
Even though Google is a machine, there's still a human element to it. It will never understand us as humans. I mean, now we're getting to iRobot and other kind of films now, basically. But I get your viewpoint. First question, coming to the last bit, will it put you out? No, because you need a human touch. A company needs to have a tone of voice, and I don't think AI can understand tone of voice. Every brand is different, has its own way it communicates its brand terms and brand tone of voice, and that's imperative and important to every business because it helps you stand out. It's part of your USP in terms of how you communicate that content. In terms of E, what we're seeing as a trend is longer term format and less of it as well. Not just bombarding people with like 2,000-3,000 words content every week, because again, that needs time to upload. That actually is an extra page on your website, another page for Google to kind of crawl as well on all that content. And it takes time for Google to crawl and rank your website based on that element. So if you put a piece of content out there, don't expect you're going to be number one on Google the next week or the next day. It's going to take months. It's going to take people to engage with that content. So we're going to need copywriters to be able to understand how to create that copy and how to distinguish it and create something unique. Can AI replicate that? To some extent, but I don't think there's enough data out there or enough quality platforms out there that, from an AI perspective, that can say, well, yes, it's going to replace, general, thought, human-based, content writing. I always feel like over the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to be a key part, unless, something new comes onto the market, and then I'll tell you and I'll say, you might want to consider a different path, mate.
Do you think a blended approach is the way forward then?
I can't remember the name of the tool, but there is a tool that you can use where a lot of companies, I can't remember the name of it, where you can upload your content to that tool that you're writing and it goes in line. It kind of like looks at all the previous content you've written and makes sure it's in line with that. If I remember, I'll email it out to everyone, but it's just escaped my head. A blended approach will probably be what you'll see as a trend in the near future as opposed to replacing. We use a lot of tools to help us do a lot of research like SpyFu, which gives us insights in terms of like what kind of text ad competitors are running, what kind of keywords they're bidding on, which is kind of like a new tool. But tools like that will only help you with your copywriting, and I think it's only going to help you stand out as an agency when you're going out in terms of we're not just copywriters, but we have all these tools to help us gather all this data and insights and this next level tech, and that's where businesses are going really. So I think a blended approach will come in handy and help you diversify potentially as an organization.